Does anyone in here ever like deal with envy, jealousy, or comparison? Raise your hand if you do. Anybody? Okay, so those of you who didn't raise your hands, I'm not sure if you're telling the truth or not, because this is like a human thing that we deal with, and maybe you're just like really, really well adjusted, but it's just, even if we're not dealing with it right now, like it's one of those companions that we don't welcome, but the companion still returns. I remember I was talking to a woman a couple years ago, and she was telling me about her best friend. Now, these two girls met when they were in middle school, so they had been best friends since they've been like, 12 or 13 years old. They went through high school together. They actually lived together a few years in college. When they didn't live together in college, they were still best friends. They were the maid of honor at each other's weddings. They intentionally, after college, lived in the same city, fairly close to each other. So then a few years ago, one of the best friends, the one that I was not meeting with, she started taking this Pilates class at Lifetime Fitness. And in this class, she met another friend. Now, it turned out that these two friends, their husbands knew each other. They were, a lot of similarities. And all of a sudden, the woman I'm talking with was telling me that, she was my best friend for 20 years. We used to text all the time. We would talk to each other every day. And, sometimes there's, days that go by we don't communicate. We don't do stuff on the weekends anymore because, she's with her new friend and, their husbands or whatever. And I said, so you don't really care for this new friend, do you? And she goes, no, I don't like her at all. Now, what this is called is called jealousy. When we have something that is threatened and a third party is the threat, we're jealous of that third party. Now, that's going to be a little bit different from envy. I remember I was having lunch with a guy a while back, and he asked me a question I'd never been asked before. He says, Craig, from your experience, do you think most people are happy? You talk to a lot of people, they share, their thoughts and their feelings with you. Do you really think that, most people are happy? And I had to think about it for a second. I said, I think a lot of people are happy a lot of the time. Yeah, I think there's some people that really, struggle in this area, and I think that, there's a lot of people that probably, it depends on the moment. There's places and people that make them happy, and there's places and people that, make them unhappy, and, life is kind of like a roller coaster, and I think most of us probably would fall into one of those three categories. And he just says, I just don't have it. I see people that live in nicer houses than me. They drive nicer cars than I have. It just seems like their relationships work and mine don't. I would not consider myself a happy person. And, so what his issue is? His issue is envy. He looks at other people. They have someone or something or some attribute that he wants that he doesn't have, so he projects, onto them. And just think about those two things: jealousy and envy. Seriously, they'll mess you up. These two things. You can just see in these two little stories, real people live in this community. Envy and jealousy. There's just carnage all over the place. I think if most of us look back on our life, we can say that. These things have not helped us, have they? They just haven't. Kierkegaard, he says, he's kind of using some irony here, but what he says is true. He says that being trampled to death by geese is a slow and painful way to die. So think about that. That'd be a miserable way to die, being trampled to death by geese. But then he says, being eaten to death by envy is slower and more painful. And he's right. Just to have this life where we just wish we had something that we didn't have, and we're not content with what we do have. To have this life where, we're always on the outside looking in. He's right. That's a really slow and a miserable way to die. Now, Paul, he talks about jealousy, he talks about envy. Now, in the Greek, there's really no distinction between jealousy and envy. It just depends upon how the translator looks at the word. So Jealousy and envy, they're a little bit different. Jealousy is always going to involve that third party, that threatens what you have. Envy is always just going to be between two parties. They have someone, something, some attribute that you want that you don't have. But from now on in this message, I'm just going to use them interchangeably because they produce the exact same effect in us. So Paul, he's writing to the church in Corinth. And have any of you all ever had like I know you have you had like a job performance evaluation before? Or if you're a student, like you get a report card? Okay, so that's what Paul's basically doing here. He's writing to the church in Corinth that's in Greece. Now, how would you like to get this? How would you like to get this job performance evaluation here? Dear brothers and sisters, when I was with you, I couldn't talk to you as I would to spiritual people. I had to talk to you as though you belonged to this world, or as though you were infants in Christ. So you get a letter, like that's the first thing you read. This is not the most uplifting letter. Like he's not saying, keep it up, do a great job here. I had to feed you with milk, not with solid food, because you weren't ready for anything stronger, and you still aren't ready. So Paul's basically giving this image here, like, these people are like, 5, 6, 7 years old at this time probably. And Paul's saying, you should be eating solid food, and I'm still having to give you milk here, folks. You got to get with the program. Now, he says, you're still controlled by your sinful nature. You are jealous. So this is nothing new. This is not 21st century America. This is like life. We've dealt with this. You're jealous of one another, and you quarrel with each other. Doesn't that prove that you're controlled by your sinful nature? Aren't you living like people of the world? When one of you says, I'm a follower of Paul, and the other says, I follow Apollos, aren't you acting just like people of the world? Now, as I come to you today, I really want you to know something. I don't come as one who has all this stuff figured out, especially in this area. I just don't. I'm not going to give you the message today, well, here's where I was, here's what happened, here's what I do. I no longer deal with this. Because I no longer deal with this, I'm 100% happy and joyful all the time. Therefore, you need to do this as well. That's not the message this morning. I struggle with this stuff too. I think as human beings, we all do. One of the things I've dealt with this last few months especially is I get a little bit of envious when someone just tells me that they got nothing to do all weekend long. I do, seriously. Today, today I have a 14-hour day. I was up at 5, I get off at 7, there's no breaks, nothing. That's just my Sunday. We had, a couple weeks ago, I had 2 weddings. I love working with people. I love doing this stuff. I had 2 weddings, 1 funeral, and 6 graduations. 2 weeks ago, I had to go to this church planning academy that our denomination required me to be at. Last week, I spent 4.5 days at a convent in Kansas teaching preaching. Now, that was a crazy week. But then I get back, and it's I hear people say, well, I'm just going to chill out, or I'm going to go to the concert, I'm going to go to the game. And I'm just going to be honest. Every once in a while, I get a little envious of that. If I ask you, so here's how you do this. If I ask you the question, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, nothing. No, nothing. We're just going to work in the yard and clean up and do some of that stuff, go to church 3 times. That's how you respond from now on, okay? Just want to let you know that that's where I'm coming from, and I think we all deal with this. We look at the family with the beautiful house, the smart kid, the athletic kid, the well-behaved kid, the woman with the cool friends, the 16-year-old with the new car, the person with the deep faith, the coworker who got the promotion or the new account, the sibling who gets affection of the parents, the girl with the cute boyfriend, the family that just took the exotic vacation, the guy with the new watch. All of a sudden, there's jealousy, there's envy, there's comparison. And what I want us to do is I want us to look at how Jesus acted. Because Jesus, he has some things to say about this topic. Now, you can read Matthew and Mark and Luke and John. These are where we hear the stories of Jesus. And you're never going to find the words, Jesus became jealous. You'll never read that Jesus was filled with envy. It doesn't exist when Jesus compared himself to somebody else. Jesus was the one who had this stuff figured out. Now, what I want us to do this morning is I want us to upgrade our lives. I really do. I want us to trade in comparison and envy and greed. And I want us to upgrade to gratitude. I want us to upgrade to generosity. And I want us to upgrade to prayer. Now, just imagine that in your life, okay? Just imagine that for a moment in your life. What if you could trade in the comparisons? What if you could trade in the envy? What if you could trade in the jealousy and upgrade to gratitude, generosity, and prayer? Yeah, it would be amazing. This would be an amazing experience for us. So here's what we're going to look at on how to do this. The first thing we do is, number one, focus on yourself when it comes to comparing. All right, so if you want to play the comparison game, focus only on yourself and no one else. Envy and jealousy, they have a parent. And the parent's name is comparison. Now, I'm going to make a case for comparison. Some comparison can actually be healthy. What some comparison is going to do is it's going to inspire us. It's going to make us better. So say if we see someone that lost 50 pounds in the course of a year or something like that, that can have a really positive effect on us. We're going to say, look at that person. They did that. They did that, and I know it's hard for them, but they did it, and I can do that too. So, some comparison is going to have a positive function. But I'm going to say this, that, most comparison is going to throw shade on life. It's going to be dysfunctional. And dysfunctional means not healthy. Not healthy means don't do it. Don't do it means stop. It's a waste of time for you. It's not good for other people. It's a destructive thing. Now, comparison, it goes back to the beginning of time. I'm going to read a text to you from Genesis chapter 4. Did you catch that? Genesis, the first book of the Bible. Chapter 4, we're 4 chapters into this. Chapter 1, God created the world. People weren't even invented yet. Chapter 2, Adam was there. Chapter 3, Eve came to life. Now, so the 4th chapter, the first thing that we deal with is comparison. This has been around since the beginning of time. It's a huge issue. Now, listen to what it says. Now, Adam had sexual relations with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant. When she gave birth to Cain, she said, "With the Lord's help, I have produced a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother and named him Abel. Okay, so we're in the 4th chapter of the Bible. Eve has had 2 sons, Cain and Abel. When they grew up, Abel became a shepherd while Cain cultivated the ground. When it came time for the harvest, Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of his firstborn lambs from his flock. Now here's what happened. The Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but did not accept Cain and his gift. This made Cain very angry, and he looked dejected. So now all of a sudden, we have the first comparison. Cain looks at his little brother Abel, and he just doesn't quite measure up. Now, comparison. Here's what happened. He saw his brother as successful. He saw himself as unsuccessful. Now, here's what happens. Comparison is going to give birth to envy and jealousy. He saw his brother as accepted. He saw himself as unacceptable. Now, angry and dejected are going to be the contrast to gratitude and joy. Freedom and abundance. So if you want freedom and abundance in life, it's going to be very difficult when we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people. If this type of spiritual and emotional freedom is what you're wanting, if this type of abundance and fruitfulness is what you're wanting, then we've got to stop comparing. Now, I think this has gotten a whole lot worse in the last 10 years. And I've talked about this a few times over the last couple of years. And I think that there's just more information out there now. I know that there's more information out there now than there ever has been before. And the comparison thing, it becomes so easy to do. It also makes comparisons very inaccurate. Like say last night, let's just assume last night, like you were laying on the couch, and you were eating some popcorn, and the popcorn had spilled on your blanket, and you're watching like TV Land, like you're watching like a Love Boat rerun. Like, do you guys remember the show Love Boat? And you're watching like Captain Stubbe and all those sorts of people, and they're trying to hook all these people up. And then like you decide, well, it's kind of boring, so you get on your iPad, and like your best friend is in the front row at the College World Series, saying, living the dream. And like you're watching Love Boat. Now you lose that comparison, don't you? Or like you get on Twitter and you see that like this high school buddy is like recently like retired from the Marines, and he's like 45 and he's looking forward to the rest of his life, and like you're basically starting over for the second time. That one's tough too. Or like your friend has downloaded like a Facebook album of their kid, and like he's this all academic, all American, valedictorian, quarterback type person, great kid, and you're happy if you can get your kid to put his socks in the hamper at the end of the night. Well, you lose that one too. Now the problem is that these comparisons aren't accurate. They're just not. Like we compare like our ordinary and our mundane to like someone else's extraordinary, like their best, and we just lose those comparisons. Now, a moment that we waste in comparison is a moment that we forfeit. Like every moment that you've spent comparing yourself to other people, it's just a moment that you've lost. And I want you to hear this. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. Like, don't compare yourself to who you perceive other people are today. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Your comparisons with other people, they're just not accurate, so stop doing it. And compare yourself to who you were yesterday or last week or the year before. Are we taking the steps that we need to move forward and grow? Now, here's what happens. When you compare and contrast, generally, we're going to lose. And then envy is going to overcome us. Envy hurts us. Hurting people make bad choices. Bad choices have bad consequences. So all of a sudden, comparison is going to lead to these negative consequences that exist in our life. So stop. Don't compare yourself to other people. Now, I want to have you hear some things about you that I know. Now, I know many of you, there's some of you I haven't had the opportunity to get to know yet, but I want you to hear some things about you. Number one is that you're special. Now, I'm not saying that to be nice. I'm not saying that to be kind. I'm not saying that because I'm a pastor. I'm not saying that because I want you to like me. You're special because God says you're special. There's some things that make you unique. There's some things that you can add some significant value to this world because of who you are. I want you to know that you're loved. The minute that God created you is the same minute that God began to love you. You are accepted by God. You are. You're accepted by God. There's nothing that anybody in this room has done that makes you unacceptable in the love, in the eyes of your Heavenly Father. You've done some really cool things in your past, and there's some really cool things in your future. So what I want us to do is, number one, when we compare, don't compare to others, compare to ourselves. And number two, to get over like this comparison and envy and jealousy and the negative consequences that come from those things, is start practicing generosity if you haven't done so yet. Just be generous in all areas of your life. Like, one of the things is like, what if you're generous in your speech? Like, what if the words that you spoke were words that just really build up and encourage and lift it up? Back in Lent, we had like this great big list of things that people could do. And one of the things I encourage some of the people to do is write 40 encouraging notes to 40 different people and mail it to them. Now, I know that there's a number of people that did this because I received a number of these notes. It was like the coolest thing to open up these little notes and just to read this little thing that someone had written about me. Now I was really curious, like, what this would do if somebody did this for 40 consecutive days. So I, talked to a few of the people that did this. And I basically said, like, okay, so you've done this, like 40 people over 40 days, and I'm just curious, like, what did this do in you? They're like, yeah, it was amazing. They said it was amazing. Like, I just, I see the world through, like, new eyes now. I see the best in people. I want people to win. I want people to succeed. I want to, like, practice gratitude. Like, this is, like, one of the coolest things I've ever done. I just think, like, if we as a church just totally embodied this would totally revolutionize our church. If we as a church totally embodied this, we would go out into our community, and this would totally revolutionize our community. It would. There's enough of us that it would. We can be generous with our time. That's a really cool way to be generous. We have a guy in the church, he's got like a normal job, and he takes off early for lunch one day, and he comes back a little bit late, and during that little 2-hour window, he drives down to the Douglas County Youth Detention Center. He leads a Bible study for these kids that are in jail, and he goes back to work and works some more. Now, I want you to know, though, what he does is all day long, or most of the day long, these kids hear that they've made mistakes, they've made poor decisions, they're bad. If they continue this, they're not going to go anywhere in life. That's what they hear. But you know what he gets to tell them? He gets to say, you're loved. He gets to say, there's nothing that you've done that's going to make you unacceptable in God's eyes. He's going to say, with God's grace, you have so much potential in your life. That's what giving a little bit of time can do. God, we can give our resources. Like, God tells us to tithe, and he doesn't do this to, fund the ministries of the church. The reason that God does this is because he knows spiritually and emotionally this is what's best for us. Last year I talked to some of our families that tithe, and we showed you, like, the videos of, what these people do and why they do it. And one of the things I heard over and over from people that practice this is that it loosens their attachment to things of this world and increases their dependence upon God. Now, those are two very positive things that can happen through one small thing. Now, this is really cool stuff. Like, when we start to practice this type of radical generosity, what happens is we discover that people become more important than possessions. So God tries to teach us a lesson through our own generosity. And what if we're generous in forgiveness? Maybe envy has gotten the best of you. Maybe jealousy has gotten the best of you. Maybe comparison has gotten the best of you, and you practice self-forgiveness. Like, I'm not going to let yesterday's envy, steal tomorrow's joy. I'm not going to let these years of comparison, slow me down. So we forgive ourselves for doing these things. And what if we forgive other people when they hurt us and they've been jealous of us or envious of us or whatever? If we're generous, what we're doing is we're loosening the grip these things have on our life. Now, I want to look at the next one, and this is going to be to practice gratitude. So we're at 3 of them now. One of them is to practice generosity. Stop the comparison. Only compare yourself to who you used to be. Now, number 3 is to practice gratitude. Now, I want to pick up the story of Cain and Abel again. Here, God is talking to Cain. He says, "Why are you so angry? Why do you look so dejected? You will be acceptable if you do what is right. But if you refuse to do what is right, then watch out. Sin is crouching at the door, eager to control you, but you must subdue it and be its master." So you guys know how this story turned out. In verse 8, one day Cain suggested to his brother, "Let's go out into the fields." And while they were there in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Now, this did not have to happen. This story did not have to end up this way. Now, Cain, he actually had a pretty good gig going. Like, he had this great big farm. It was his. You know, God spoke directly to Cain. Like, this is a really cool thing. Like, most of us don't get to that place. And all God told Cain is just, Cain, just give me what's right. Like, that's all I'm asking you. But you know what? Cain, he played the game of comparison. Comparison, it led to envy, and envy led to death. Cain could not be grateful for what he did have. He was ungrateful for what he didn't have. The glasses of comparison will blind us from that vision. Comparison becomes envy, and envy becomes death. Now, listen to what Paul says. We're going to read this one in probably about a month and a half or so. Be thankful in all circumstances. Not be thankful when things are good. Be thankful when things are going your way. Be thankful when you got nothing to be jealous about. Be thankful in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you who belong to Jesus Christ. Let me give you some examples of like how this might work. So I don't know about you, but I spend like half my day at like the intersection of 180th and Q Street. Like I just do. Like the red light, if my car is going there, like the city of Omaha has a sensor and it just turns red and it stays that way. Don't know how it works, and I got a car. It's a nice car. I mean, it's a 2007. It's got like 135,000 miles on it. It's an Infiniti. It gets me around. Never once broken down. Well, I probably will now, but it hasn't yet. Now, let's just say I'm in like the left lane, kind of left center lane, and someone comes up to me on the right, and it's a woman, and she's got this brand new, what's that new, is it a Tesla, is that right? Like it gets like 1 million miles a gallon, and it's like $150,000, and it goes really fast, and it's got all these cool gadgets. So all of a sudden, I like look over, and I said, oh, she's got a Tesla. I saw Consumer Reports rated that like 110 out of 100. It's like the best car ever. And I'm sitting in this 10-year-old car with 135,000 miles. Nice. Must be rough to be you. And the light's still red, but it turns like green in her lane and it stays red in mine. And now all of a sudden I'm not just envious, I'm like, yeah, it's like goes downhill from there. And now what does that do though? Like the moment that I become envious of her car is the moment I become ungrateful for mine. There's nothing wrong with my car. I should thank God for my car. It gets me where I need to go. It doesn't break down. You know, and this is what's going to happen. It is going to be impossible to be envious and grateful at the same time. It just is. You know, if you see someone else has like a perfect kid and you envy that, then all of a sudden you're going to be a whole lot less grateful for your own kids. What would it look like if we just got down on our knees and we thank God for our own kids, you know, both for who they are and for who they're not? Or maybe we see someone else that like is just like totally fit and they're healthy, and you know our back hurts and we get headaches and we don't sleep well at night. You know, all of a sudden envy is going to take us to a place that we don't want to go. What if we just went to God and thanked Him for years of prosperity as far as our physical health goes? And what would it look like if we thank God for the hope that there's better days that are still in front of us? You know, just like envy and jealousy and comparison can steal your gratitude, I want us to just throw this and turn it upside down. You know, gratitude, the moment that we're grateful, the minute that we experience and profess gratitude, is the minute that all of a sudden comparison and jealousy and envy know that they're no longer wanted and they're no longer needed. You know, so you can see that this upgrade is getting really cool, isn't it? There's one more thing I want us to look at, and that is prayer. You know, Paul says in Philippians, you'll read this one probably about 3 or 4 weeks, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. Yeah, I would say, like, if you're jealous of someone right now, if someone's, like, threatening a relationship that you have, or if someone's preventing a relationship that you want, pray for that person. Pray for yourself. Pray for the other party in the relationship. Just cover and surround this thing with prayer. I would say if somebody has something that you want, if someone has an attribute that you want, if someone has a relationship that you want, I would say go to God on their behalf and thank them for that. Lord, I see this couple walking down the trail and they just look like they're in love, and I just thank you that you've blessed them with this. Or I see this person with this really cool new car, and God, I just thank you for the abundance in her life. Lord, I thank you for everything that you've done for me and are doing for me and will do for me, and you're a good God. And Lord, forgive me for the times when I've taken your blessings for granted. When we can start to pray, our life can start to change. This is powerful stuff. It's amazing stuff. And what I want us to think about is, what if we made this upgrade? What if we said, comparison and envy and jealousy, you all are no longer wanted and you're no longer needed because I got some new traveling companions. I've got gratitude, I've got generosity, and I've got prayer.